All right, if you are watching this video, chances are you have been on YouTube searching around similar videos that people have made about making the modification to the loading port of the Mossberg 930 JM Pro. And so what I'm going to present to you is how I went and accomplished the modification on my own with a lot of tools that I already had in the garage. And as you can see here, the results on this one turned out just fine, just as good as anybody else online who had done it. It's a very actually uncomplex procedure. It's pretty simple to do, and you don't have to be too worried about making any mistakes as long as you take your time. This isn't too complicated. I'm not even a gunsmith, and the results came out just fine. So real quick, the first thing that I did was to get this angle down, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to get this to where your thumb will ride across this area as you're loading quads or deuces. And so you want your thumb to ride across while at the same time it's passing the point to where the shells will lock into the magazine so that you can just lift up and do your next set, that kind of thing. And so the way to accomplish that is you got to get this cut down, and you got to get this at kind of a 45-ish degree angle, doing a combination of those two things. And so the first thing I did was I had a basic file. This is a Harbor Freight one. And what I did is I had this in a vise. Of course, I took everything out. It was just completely disassembled. It takes about 2 minutes to 5 minutes to take everything from the bolt to the trigger group and everything out of here. I mean, the only thing I had was just the receiver. And I even took a towel, put it in the back here, so that as I was grinding and doing things like that, making sure that none of the aluminum that I was going to be removing from the receiver would end up in any of the mechanics in the back. So just a little towel there. Had a shop vac for picking up any of the material. You try to minimize the amount of stuff flying around, which wasn't much, but again, you don't want to be breathing it or whatever. Again, once it was in a vise, I went ahead and this area here, I ran this file perpendicular with the receiver frame, and kept cutting until I got this downward cut on both sides, and kept it even so that it was taking equal amounts of material from both sides. So I'd just go ahead, and it took, I don't know, 20 minutes or so, and just again completed that until you could see there's a kind of an upward angle on it. So that's again to try to get it down as much as possible. And you can see there, you can see that much more material was taken here, and then as I go back, hardly towards the end, there was like no material pretty much that was taken back here. So it's it's just kind of a slope is what you're committing here. And I tried to get as close as I could to where I was about flush with that pin right there. I didn't want to take any material from that pin, so that was kind of the point as far as I would go there, but I would get deep over into this area. So once I had that taken care of, then for this area here, I initially was using one of these files, but it really wasn't working as well. What worked the best actually for this area and cutting into this here was just using a Dremel with a regular little drum sander bit, and just sanding it around and being very slow with it, and actually first off I would go ahead and just do it completely straight down until I got into that cut, and that was probably, you can see about how far I went in there with it, but I just ran that sanding drum until I was right into there. And then from that point on, I would use it to kind of work on that 45. I wouldn't hit these areas with it because I was afraid I'd start digging a channel into here, and that wouldn't be good. So I used the smaller one to start sanding around and just again taking my time. I wasn't putting a lot of pressure on it, just going around and getting it until I got it the way I liked it. And then once I got this material all taken out, then I went back with one of the smaller files like this and started rounding these areas here, kind of a deburring process on the inside area all the way around, and just kind of took my time. And then I used a smaller file. Let me grab it here. I just happened to have it lying around, and was kind of doing a little bit of detail work, just working around, again, trying to get rid of any sharp edges and getting this to be flush. And what I would even do so that this stayed flush on both sides is I would take the file and kind of run it at a 45, and you could see the marks as they would be equal on both sides, and just kind of kept it so that, again, it was symmetrical from one side to the other. And just working back between that tool, this tool, this tool, these here, I was able to get that angle, and that wasn't too complicated. It was not much to it, really. All right, once this was completed and I got the material off it, then came the work of getting it to where it was smooth. And the first thing I did was I used some wet sandpaper. This was 220 grit, and this actually worked just fine for sanding, getting all the gouge marks out, and it did a pretty good little, it got all the grooves out. It took a little bit of time, and but I just would tear off pieces and with my finger just run it down. And so from there, I would just go ahead and just go around and around and around and tearing off pieces until I got it to where I didn't really see much in the way of too many grooves. Then from there, I went ahead, and for my Dremel, I went to this little pad. It was a little abrasive pad. I'm not sure what it was. I had it lying around, but something that would be abrasive, but not as abrasive as this paper. And this paper was 220 grit, and it doesn't have much grit to it. But this right here, this kind of like, I don't know what this material is, but I ran it at a high speed on here, and boy, it took out any other gouges or anything. It did a really nice job. So with just experimenting with this, I was really happy with it. I was able, and it would, get into the areas there where the 45 would meet right in here and here. And so if you can find one of these at any of your hardware stores, this little bit to put on here, this little, I don't know, it's like a tough sponge of some kind or whatever it is, but it has just enough grit to where it polishes this up and gets up any grooves out of it. Then from there, went ahead and just used paste with the little polishing applicator. So whether it's a disc or this one here, it doesn't matter, and I just polished it up, and it came out just fine. I was really happy with it, and I really didn't have to go to the store to get any other additional tools. It was just whatever I had lying around. So that's pretty much it on that. So if you're looking to do this, don't be afraid to do it. It's not that big of a deal. There's nothing really that's going to be in your way. Again, you want to make sure, excuse me, trying getting over an old cough here. You don't want to be messing with this pin too much, but if you're just taking a little bit off, I don't think it's going to be an issue. And then, of course, down here, I went all the way. The key was getting it back, cutting enough material so that you get back beyond where the catch would be for the shell, so that you want to be able to, like with this dummy here, you get your finger in there and you just go ahead and just slide, and boom, it locks into place. So I may have even cut in a little bit into the magazine tube, just so I would be sure that as my finger slides across, that it's going to lock into place. I don't have to stick my thumb in there. It's just boom, it locks right on in. So very simple process. to do that. So you just want to make sure you get enough out. And so just take a look again on there. Just boom. See, it just goes right on in. And so anybody can do that, okay? And then the last thing I wanted to say is I picked up one of these Tacom load assists. I don't know if you've seen them at all. Rather than getting your gate welded, try one of these things. Make a explanation short. Don't buy it. It's a piece of junk. Doesn't work very well. What was happening is I would have this on the gate, and then when it would come down, I wouldn't be able to eject the shells out from here because they get caught up. So save yourself money. Don't buy this. Just get this welded or whatever, or maybe you don't think you need it, but regardless, Tacom makes some good stuff, and this is not it. So all right, other than that, good luck.